What's up, guys? We've never done this before, but this is our very first bonus episode on Youth Group Chronicles. Last summer, I flew out to Southern California to join Christian YouTuber Ruslan in his studio to record this episode, and I couldn't be more pumped for you all to hear it. We went pretty deep on plenty of topics in the Christian world, but don't worry, we also featured lots of hilarious youth group stories. I do have to give you a warning though, parental advisory is definitely recommended for this episode. We went pretty deep into purity culture, so if you have some young ears around, this episode is definitely PG-13, and you might want to preview it before sharing it with kids. But without further ado, here's my talk with Ruslan.
Ruslan.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest, one of my favorite new Christian podcasts that I've just been rather enjoying. I've reacted to a few of their videos. Without any further ado, Sam from Youth Group Chronicles.
What's up, man? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
It's an honor to be here. Seriously.
Man, I'm pumped. Okay, I stumbled across your stuff just from Instagram and some of the crazy stories that only if you were in a youth group or a youth group leader could you relate to.
Yes.
Before we get into some of that and kind of the format of your pod and how that came about, give us a little background of who you are, where you're from, and how you got into making content.
Yeah, so my name is Sam Moss. I'm from upstate New York. Been in church and ministry pretty much my whole life. Grew up at a Christian youth camp. So when it comes to...
What do you mean? Wait. What do you mean grew up at a Christian youth camp?
I lived there. My parents ran the camp up on like a mountain.
Really?
So, yeah. So when it comes to kids doing stupid things...
You firsthand?
Firsthand, yeah.
Okay, hold on. They own and run a place where people go.
Yes, they don't anymore. They ended up moving to upstate New York probably 3 or 4 years ago.
And where was this before? What part?
Northern Pennsylvania.
Northern Pennsylvania. Okay, so not same region. Not
yeah,
too
about
far.
an hour. Yeah.
So hold on. So you grow up at a place where kids go for summer camp.
Yes.
And winter camp.
Yep.
That had to have been very interesting.
It was honestly a very unique childhood getting to grow up there. I mean, we had access to like a full gymnasium for 15 years of my life. So you could go do whatever you want. You met thousands of people every single year. And you get to live in like the country out in the woods. So it was pretty cool getting to grow up there.
This is Zach's dream, by the way. He wants to live in the country and out in the woods. That's
yeah.
Zach right there.
You would have loved this, man. It was like 120 acres up on a hill. Yeah, Northern Pennsylvania is pretty cool.
So, were they also heavy into church as well? Okay.
Yeah.
So that had to have been cool if you're running a youth group camp and you're in the local church. How big was this place?
The camp, I mean, it slept probably, what was it, 100, 150, somewhere around there. So it wasn't super big, 100 acres, a bunch of buildings, and it was like, you know, you'd have these youth groups come for weekends. There would be weeks of camp in the summer, which was pretty cool. And then the town itself, though, was tiny. So, like, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. It was 4,000 people. That's our town.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so this is real. This is real America.
This is America.
This ain't the coastal elites of California and San Diego. So, what was that like?
That, you know, I would do it again, for sure. I think it was nice to. I wouldn't say I was sheltered in a way, for sure. So coming to like see it and hear these like stories from youth group has kind of cultured me a bit for this podcast, but I wouldn't change it. And then on top of that, like growing up at a Christian camp, I was also homeschooled, and homeschoolers get a bad rap for being these, you know, odd kids that don't meet people. But because I grew up at this youth camp, I met thousands of people every year. So it wasn't like I was locked away in our house for months on end. It was interactions with normal people. So that definitely helped.
How in the mix were you? Because they're running this place. And how in the mix are they? Like, are you guys meeting most of the people that come through and hanging out with them? Or is it just kind of like running an Airbnb, a church youth group Airbnb?
Some days it was kind of like that. But growing up, as I got older, we would run the ropes course. So we would run the rock wall and then the team building activities. I was a counselor. Like, our parents, they had our own week of camp that they would run. The rest of the weeks, they would just host and be a facility. So that week, I led worship. We were in the band, all that kind of stuff, and more as we got older. But we were pretty involved from very young age, my siblings and I, all the way up to when I moved out and got married.
So when did you? Whoops, hold on, I pressed the wrong button. So when did you guys move out of this area, and why did you move out of it? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I met my wife. And I said, peace out, and then moved an hour north. Our church is in upstate New York. Okay. And we had been going there for a while. And so her and I got married and moved up there. And then my parents eventually followed. We had a couple kids of our own, so they wanted to be around the grandkids. Yep. And they wanted to be more involved in our church up in upstate New York. So cool. They started a ministry there now.
And Ithaca?
We are a little bit south of Ithaca. It's Elmira. So Ithaca's, the next town on, a little bit north of us.
So how far from Ithaca?
35, 40 minutes.
Oh, okay. So it's just a general same area. Yeah. Yep. A buddy of mine went to the college, the big Ivy League college.
Cornell.
Yeah. Paul Russell. Shout out to Paul Russell. So he went up to Cornell, and then I've done a few shows in that region as well that are, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. That was another, it wasn't Cornell, but it was another school out there. Ithaca College, I think, is one. No, it's, gosh darn it, I'm drawing a blank. My buddy went there, and he brought us out to do a big show out there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and then we also drove across and did a show at same trip. It's actually one of my first paid shows. We then drove across.
In upstate New York.
Upstate New York. The paid show was at Smith College in Massachusetts, which is, ironically enough, an all-girls school. So my first paid non-church show was a secular all-girls school in Smith College, Massachusetts, and then we piggybacked. It's not Humboldt, it's something like that, up in upstate New York as well, and it was super fun. And so our buddy who booked us for that ended up driving us across state lines to bring us a drum set, because back then we used to have a drummer and stuff like that. And so shout out to Caleb, Natalie in the chat. He's a good friend of mine. Well, he's a creator that I'm a fan of. And so he's upstate New York representing. So now you're still in ministry?
Yeah.
Okay. How old are you now? You've been married? How old? Married and all that good stuff?
I've been married. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary.
Congrats.
And been married 5 years, and then I'm 25.
25. Okay. Yeah. Gosh, man.
I'm married pretty young.
You are the kid, the avatar of youth group, homeschool.
Quite literally.
Love Jesus. Yeah. And it seems to have worked out well for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it really has.
Because I think in light of this stuff, like, one, obviously homeschoolers get a bad rap.
They really do. If you listen to the show, then you know that.
Yeah, youth group kids get a bad rap. Christian kids get a bad rap. And I think it's because usually we go to the most extremes of when we think about these things. And there's probably millions more guys like you walking around that love Jesus, married, happily, 25, having babies, serving God, being a net positive to society, like all these. So like you, Caleb, other guys out here. So I just find it interesting how it's the way your avatar is framed in culture.
Yeah,
is like totally opposite of what it really is.
It's framed as the weirdo culture in a way. And don't get me wrong, I've come in contact with some odd homeschooled kids, Christian youth group kids. It happens.
As a bi.
But if you think about this, you're going to run into those kids at public school too. And no knock on public schoolers. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But you find it in both areas. Maybe more so in the homeschool area, but not everybody's like that.
Yeah. If I'm honest, and this is going to sound weird, so we homeschool our kids. We have a 8-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I didn't realize how much indoctrination happens in school.
A lot.
I didn't really understand that. It wasn't, education is supposed to be teaching you how to think, how to critically think, how to process information better, how to add, how to subtract, how to read, how to write, how to do, right? These sorts of things, science. But I think much of public education now is really driving what to think, what views to hold, what ideologies to hold. And it got more and more as I got into college. I would say college is like they're really
for
like
sure
putting it on. But I
they prep you though.
Yeah.
Elementary, middle school, high school,
and it's worse now. I think in elementary and in middle school, it's much worse in terms of the type of things they want you to believe about the world. I just think are unhelpful. Yeah. And so my position is, who are going to be the people that are still reproducing 50 years from now, 100 years from now. It's going to be a bunch of guys like Sam and Caleb and my kids, you know, that like love Jesus, grow up, want families, want to start and have as many kids as they can take care of. So I think it's going to be interesting, like the next 100 years, like how is society going to shift?
Yeah, I do agree. And it is interesting to see I don't know how to frame it, but like the wake up in the Christian world, especially realizing that, wow, one, like you said, it is indoctrination, a lot of it. The government is teaching your kids exactly what they want them to believe and how they want them to grow up. And I've seen a lot more people, especially after COVID, because I mean, that turned a lot of people into homeschoolers, but even now, like sticking to that and being like, you know what, now we're gonna teach our kids what we want them to learn, and what values we want them to hold, because they're there, 8 hours a day, right, for the majority of their childhood and teen years. It's crazy.
Yeah. So how do you go from serving in ministry, doing some youth group stuff, having a family, 5 years married, kids, the whole bit, to kind of stumbling across this format of the podcast, which I just think is it's all of the good, it's all the things. Yeah. Like it's there's a niche to it. It's funny. It's not super like combative or like, you know, like some of the content I get into, it could be pretty edgy, right, and you know, stuff like that. But you guys' stuff is fairly light. There's humor to it. It's done well. There's story, narrative. How did you stumble into just being a creator in general?
So I've been a creator actually for quite a while. When I lived in Pennsylvania, my parents said, you know what, you should go get a job at a local news station.
Oh, wow.
And just for the exposure and the learning experience of being a creator. So I was like a news anchor, like my senior year. Really? How weird is that in a small town?
Wow.
So I'd go to like...
how far away was this from where you actually live?
So this was like 10 minutes. Okay. Like we knew the family.
Wow. Yeah. And you guys had like a little small news station and you were able to be an anchor on the news?
Yeah.
Is this stuff still on YouTube?
I'm going to say no, but yeah, it's out there.
Oh, you got to show me some of it.
It's so bad. So I would go to like sports games at the high school and interview players afterward. And then I'd go to a desk. And
so you like kind of like local celebrity vibes?
I wouldn't say local celebrity because I was still in high school myself. Yeah. And like knew all the kids. But looking back, it was quite the opportunity. It was fun. I wouldn't trade it, but it helped me learn communication at a professional level.
Yeah.
And then from there, I've run my own business for a while doing website development. Okay. I started a marketing podcast, and then did that for a couple of years. So I got into the podcasting world there. Okay. So couple that with what I learned at the news station, and then for Youth Group Chronicles, I had heard a couple stories from the youth pastor at our church, and he's like, you know, youth kids are crazy. I heard from this and this, and like kids setting off fireworks in a church bus, and I thought that was hilarious. But I knew that there were more stories out there. Yeah. And I was sitting in my parents' living room talking with a friend. I was like, man, like someone should start a podcast about the crazy things that happen at youth group, because I know there's stories out there. And then I was like, dang, I should probably be the one to do it because no one else is going to do it.
Yeah. How much of your marketing mind was at play in the development? Because clearly utility, communication, public speaking, all those sorts of things. But then there's oh, wait, I see an in the marketplace. I see a niche that isn't being filled. And how much of it was that, would you say?
A lot.
Yeah.
On top of that, I'm extremely strategic.
Okay.
So I really thought it through, like, man, what are the angles here? And it's like the perfect storm of a podcast, if you will, because one, the content, I don't really have to create the content.
Come on.
I don't have to sit down and come up with ideas for the show. Once the wheels got turning, people naturally will send in their show, their stories to be on the show. I mean, there's obviously a lot of work that goes into it, but that takes off a huge component. And then on top of that, people love to laugh. If you know marketing, people want to laugh, and there's not really a ton of just funny Christian creators. I mean, there's some comedians and stuff, but nothing in this niche of youth group.
Yeah.
So
well, nothing. I would take it a step further, dude. I would say not a lot in the niche of just Christian entertainment.
Yeah.
One of the things we do intentionally is we're not trying to be super theological and lofty, right? And I'm passionate about that, but there's levels to that. There's folks that, like we were talking offline about, like the Trinity debates. There's folks that, and my buddy God Logic, I just met him, had him on. I mean, he literally does a channel it's a fairly big channel. I think almost 50,000 subscribers, and all they do is debate.
Yeah.
That is what they do. And they go deep on the minutia of begotten and what does it mean in the original, like, dude. And I'm like, all right, like that, like, I don't want to do that. And so a lot of the stuff we do, and even when you guys pulled up, I was trimming a video from the church burning down. I was like, man, I don't want to sound like I'm laughing at a church burning down, but I'm laughing at the Snopes covering it and how ridiculous, right? So we do a lot of stuff that is just straight like, this is for entertainment. I am not your pastor. I am not trying to shepherd you, but we are going to talk about godly biblical principles to help you navigate your life. But there is a huge, I think, void in just strictly fun, good, entertaining concepts, and then you add the humor component, which for us is kind of what Zach is really good at. Zach is really good at just the humor component, little callbacks, and sometimes I miss them. Like, but I think you're totally right, dude. I think it's the perfect overlap of all of these different things that positions you guys to be a purple cow in the marketplace. I'm sure you've read the book Purple Cow by
I haven't
Seth
read
Godin.
it, but it's on the list.
The concept is good. It's a good book. It's an easy read. But Seth Godin talks about this whole idea if you're driving in a farm in upstate New York, which y'all got a lot of farms, or in Pennsylvania, and you see a cow, and what are you going to do? You're going to keep driving by it. It's just a cow. But if you keep going and you see a purple cow, you're going to stop the car, pull over to get your selfie, take your pictures, the whole bit, call, FaceTime somebody. And that is what, by proxy, that is what makes a good product, a good brand, a good narrative, is that it is unique, it's unexpected, there's humor, all these different things. And I think people miss that there's strategy to it. There's
a lot of strategy.
It's not just like spontaneous, it's going to be organic. I hate that word, by the way. Organic. Talk about some of the strategy in your thinking towards this stuff.
So a lot of people might get annoyed when it comes to the podcast itself, because if you listen to the audio podcast or if you watch on YouTube, every story, or a lot of them, starts with, this is the craziest thing that happened in my youth group, and then I'll read the story. And the next one is, this is the wildest fail I had at youth group, and everyone knows that is coming on maybe the audio podcast. But when it comes to discoverability, I'm chopping up those stories for YouTube or for TikTok and Instagram Reels, right? So if someone stumbles across a story of us just talking, one, they're not going to be a hook. So we have to create a hook even in the audio podcast when we're recording for every single video that we're going to put out, because you don't know who's going to stumble across it. So that's some of the strategy behind that.
Just literally opening up with, this is the craziest.
Yeah, something like that, or really just something off the wall, just catches you off guard. And even though people that know the show and are listening on the audio podcast, it might get repetitive to hear that, but for someone who's never seen the show, they're going to go and see that. Another thing, early on, I mean, I didn't have people sending in stories, so I went into Facebook groups for youth pastors and leaders and just started asking, like, hey, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened? I mean, hundreds of comments would be in these comment sections. And then on top of that, there were some older posts that I was able to go in and take some ideas from, and people in the comments. So that really started the show. And then on top of that, I followed up with every single person that had been on the show, because they don't know about the show. This is brand new. And I said, hey, we featured your story. And then they share it with 5-10 people. So you're curating,
meaning you don't have to be the expert in said content, which a lot of times the best content is going to be when you're curating versus like being someone that's done something interesting, and then therefore you're interesting and people want to listen to you, right? So it's like, hey, do you have to be the Gary Vee or the Alex Hermosi that's lived this interesting life and does cool stuff?
Which is not me.
Right? Which is very few and far between, right? To go build a $10 million, $100 million, or whatever, right? To go be the cool pastor guy who builds a cool church, who has the resources to then go start the content. Or do you take content and curate other people's stories?
Exactly what we do.
Yeah. So that's genius.
Yeah, and that way you don't have to sit down and come up with the content, because on the show I've shared like 3 stories of my own. That would be an intro to a podcast, and then that would be the end of Youth Group Chronicles. So I tell people all the time on the show, I'm like, hey, just so you know, when the stories dry up, that's the end of Youth Group Chronicles, which they haven't. It's not.
They're never going to dry up. What is the growth been like? Just tell me numbers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so early on, for the first 9 months to a year, there was probably 33% listener growth month over month for the podcast. And then on average, and then over the past few months, it just spiked. One of the biggest things was obviously you guys got a hold of a couple clips, which was super helpful.
Okay.
And then
glad we can help. That's
absolutely.
Good. But not to cut you off, one of the big values is to highlight other creators. You know what I mean? To like push people to other stuff, because I'm not trying to build a cult here. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, oh,
everyone already thinks Christians are enough of a cult anyway.
Right?
So.
Yeah. If we can diversify, it just makes it more fun, in my opinion.
So once that happened, you guys obviously helped a lot on Instagram, and then I don't know what it was with Instagram, but Instagram basically said like, okay, it's your turn.
They pushed a button on you.
They pushed a button, and I mean, from 3,000 followers to 22,000 followers in a month and a half.
Come on.
So of course, I mean, here's the marketing stuff again.
How's TikTok treating you?
So TikTok was the biggest driver for the longest time. So I have 48,000 followers there,
That's dope.
Which again, marketing people, short form content. People are not going to listen to a podcast to start. It's never going to happen. Hook them with a short term for months.
Yes.
That's what we did on TikTok, and then Instagram, which finally started blowing up. And
Instagram's your second biggest platform?
Yeah. Okay. Although now, I mean, it's kind of cool to see the ebbs and flows because TikTok has been the driver for a long time. We've had a couple videos pop off on there. And then Instagram now is like the consistent 500, 700 followers a day now for the past month and a half.
Instagram feels way more consistent in views and followers.
Yeah.
And TikTok is like, and then.
Yeah. And then it, out of nowhere, every couple months, it'll do something. Yeah. But both of those together, you just put in the comment section, hey, just so you know, this is a clip from our actual podcast. Pick up a few subscribers every day from there. And now the audio show is up to, I mean, we're looking at 50,000 downloads a month right now.
Okay. How many episodes are you doing?
One a week.
One a week. Okay, great. Yeah. So that, I mean, you guys are in it. I think that's I want to say top 5% or top 1%. So I don't remember. Zach, can you look that up for me? Yeah. So what is the top 5% of podcast? I think 5,000 or more downloads is in the top 5%.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
It's something, because that's about our numbers on just a podcast app. Are you guys using Anchor so you could still put the video
So
up?
we started with Anchor, and then we jumped to Spreaker because I wanted to do what's called programmatic ads, which basically you just put a little blip, just tell them where you want the ad, and then they'll throw some in there. Okay. I didn't like the ads they were putting on there, even though I said don't put like sexual ads.
Sure.
Some wild stuff ended up on there. People were like, hey, just so you know. So we switched to Art19 from, it's a hosting platform by Amazon.
Got you. Okay, yeah. So we're using Anchor right now.
Anchor's great though.
And they have the Anchor app, or what's not Anchor, excuse me, a Spotify for podcasts that has the Spotify for podcasts ad that we read, and then we could add additional ads, and so it's starting to monetize stuff, and so we do about, I would say, a good episode for us about 5,000 total plays across all platforms, but they do the video. What's the numbers?
All right, more than 443 downloads. You're in the top 10%.
More than 440 downloads is top 10%.
More than 1,083 downloads. You're in the top 5%.
Top 5% is 1,000. Okay. I'm just saying it back because I can't hear you.
And then more than 5,000 downloads is top 1%.
Top 1%.
So is it 5,000 per episode, or is it 5,000 a month? Like, what are they?
Sounds like it's 5,000 per episode.
Got it. So we're not, I mean, some have hit 5,000. So let me look this up.
Yeah, ours are the same. Some will hit 5,000. I would say on the low end, they're hitting 1,000 for our pods. Yeah. And we're just repurposing the stuff that we're putting on YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how is YouTube treating you?
So YouTube is very new. We started in, what was that, January? Yeah. So YouTube, we're up to okay. So when it comes to help from you guys, YouTube was the biggest jump for sure. So I think we're up to maybe 2,500. What was it? 2,600 subscribers.
Nice.
And what's cool is we have all the content. I mean, we have 60 plus episodes of this podcast all in video form already. Yep. So it's just going back through and getting it, prepped and upload to YouTube.
Well, the highest value is always going to be the podcast listener. Yeah. Because they listen for longer. They finish more likely to finish the videos. So it's going to be great. But I mean, you guys are doing it. You guys got top of funnel. You got into medium content if they want to check you out on YouTube. And then the bread and butter is the long form. Yeah. And there you can, whether it's products or whatever, you can monetize. What are you guys doing in terms of monetization? By the way, we have a third channel called Mastermind My Business where we talk about this kind of stuff.
This is right up my alley here.
So I'm going to clip some of this and put it on there because this is really good stuff. Because I think people never see the how to build something from zero to what, even 2,500 subscribers or 5,000 podcast listeners. How do you do that? And what are the basic steps? And so I think you guys are so fresh and new that sometimes if I'm thinking about my own story,
Yeah.
it's not always as linear.
Whatever questions you have, I'm
Yeah.
happy to talk about
So
them.
what does monetization look like now?
So we're doing a couple of different things. The first one is what you mentioned with the ads. So if you start a podcast on something like Anchor for starters, they will say, hey, if you plug our podcast in the beginning or whatever, like a 30-second script, you literally read it in your voice.
Yep.
They'll start paying you like $5-10 for every 1,000 listens. It's the CPM. So that's a really cool tool. That's actually the very first thing we did. Once we got off Anchor, you can pay. So Anchor's free. You can pay for a host, a podcast host. There's a ton of them out there. I've done way too much research, unfortunately, but we started with Spreaker. And basically it was $25-30 a month. And they host your podcast, they distribute it just like Anchor. But instead of just one ad, they will put their own red ads somewhere in your podcast.
Which is what Spotify / Anchor started doing recently. Yep.
Okay, so you do that, and then you start making. It's not a whole lot; it's really pennies on the dollars. But if you have a lot of listeners, like it could really add up. And then, although I'm not a huge fan of Spreaker, so definitely try out Art19 where we are now. Just because the ads they were playing, I was like, guys, you said this wasn't going to be on the show, and here they are. Art19 literally does the exact same thing. But you can also insert your own ads. So basically, if you have a ad blip where you want to put your podcast ad, you can give it priority. So you can record your own ads for advertising sponsors, and yours will play first. But if you don't have any sponsors or it's hit the limit for the month, you can basically do what's the programmatic advertising, and they will insert their own. So it's kind of like their backlog. So we started with the simple ads, and then we did some merch. So we're gonna monetize that.
Nice.
And then we landed a couple. Like I went out and but actually talked to like a sponsor instead of Spreaker or Art19. So that's the biggest goal because.
So you went out and got brand deals for yourself.
Yeah, one reached out, and then another one, we did a collab, or I noticed they followed me on TikTok. I'm like, hey, actually it was a barter, believe it or not. I'll give them a shout. It was Gonham Ranch. They do drop ship beef everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I want that because
like
it's healthy.
the product, yeah.
So I'm like, I'll barter with you. So we're bartering with them.
Dope.
But
That's
yeah,
great.
just thinking outside the box,
Yeah. The good part is you're diversifying.
Yeah.
And the tricky part is if it all becomes dependent on AdSense, then that's not a great sustainable business model. So the fact that you're working in some sponsors, you're working in merchandise, you're working in, you guys going to do a membership of some sorts next?
Yeah, so that's in the works. And then on top of that, we would love to do live events.
Okay.
Just
I love
because,
that.
I mean, here we are, the marketing mind here. If you think about it, we can get content if we go to a church or whatever, a youth group or a conference, sit down, I bring a couple co-hosts, and we read the stories and get like, one, their reaction, and then two, the audience. Now you have one, they paid you to come. Two, you get all your content that you get to chop up. It's a different look. It's a cool like atmosphere. So
live
just
audience to laugh. If it's especially you got to mic it well because sometimes you can't really hear.
If you hear the crowd, just like no way. So that's
dope.
That's in the works too.
I love that, man. Yeah, one of the things we're looking at is live events as well. I'm also working on a book, which is going to.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay, so you ready to get into some of these stories?
Yeah, I have a few here ready for you.
All right. All right. I'm excited. This is the part where, this is the part I'm most excited about just because some of these stories are so over the top. And so let's do it.
All right. This is a story from Jeremy. Jeremy said, while we were away at a youth conference, I noticed there were two people from another youth group making out in the pool. Now, me and the youth pastor got the attention of one of the kids from their youth group. And I asked, hey, where are your leaders at? And the kid pointed to the two people in the pool.
So they're setting an amazing,
great example. My brother, I read it to my brother on the way here. He's like, yeah, those are those two kids that just never outgrew youth group, and now they're the leaders. Yeah, the leaders,
the leaders, quote unquote, the leaders. Yeah, I remember. You guys remember like the couple that just started dating, but they're like
gives me the ick,
clingy, right? I remember, bro,
worst.
when I was in youth group, our worship leader, was she our worship leader? She was on the worship team. I don't remember if she was like the leader, and then like one of the guys who's actually like a worship pastor in the area now. We're together, and bro, it was just non-stop PDA,
the worst
at youth group, and I'm like. are they boning? Like, you guys are just clingy. It's so annoying. And so anyway, I don't know where the girl is. They obviously broke up. And so
Because not many of those last.
Yeah,
they'll last a week at camp.
Yes, yes. And he went on, and he was the worship pastor at a pretty big church around here.
Mm-hmm.
And me and him follow each other online. I think he still does worship stuff now. But man, they were the couple, and they were both like cool, young, good looking, lean, like in great shape. And so they were like that couple. But they were just nonstop.
Everyone, I mean, people listening to this, people in youth ministry, they know. They instantly have a couple that comes to their mind.
Oh yeah.
There's always the camp relationships.
Oh, yeah.
That was the biggest one. Just growing up at a camp. And then what's funny,
the weekend romance, bro.
Yeah. But what's funny is like the next year they'd be around for round 2, and they would rekindle for the 5.5 days that they were together.
Oh my gosh.
Purpling is what we'd call it. Or what that you shouldn't be doing is purpling.
I remember one of my closest, this is so awful. This is so terrible. I remember one of my close friends who, when I first got saved, this was like my Christian friend. And his dad was a pastor. His dad was great, man. I would go over his house, and I'd come in, and he'd be like, "Can't come into the strong man's house and not come and say hello to the strong man. Shake my hand, son." You know, and he'd sit down with us, and he'd read to us from like, this is like a pretty big size Bible I got here. It's the NLT study Bible. He'd have this massive John MacArthur study Bible. He was amazing. And we would always hang out, and he was discipling us. And then come to find out, as my buddy who doesn't walk with Jesus anymore, he ended up losing his virginity at a youth group camp.
And
that was the
knowing
beginning.
what I've heard is not surprising.
That was the beginning of the end for him, bro. He just
too bad.
spiraled and spiraled and spiraled, and he sells cannabis now.
Hey.
Like, that's his whole thing. I'm just like, man, he's like posting Instagram photos of like a room like this with all these lights. And
wait, you already got the plants,
right? And it's just, dude, it's just growing, just like exorbitant amounts of cannabis. And,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, different kids with different women and the whole bit.
So at our camp, to my knowledge, no one ever hooked up. That wasn't supposed to. I don't.
Yeah, right.
To
your knowledge,
that at least I would put money on that it happened, but it never came out that anything happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Listen, when you're young and there's perversion, meaning like something else, there's no telling what people will and won't do in a church setting. Like, there is no reverence. There was another buddy of mine who was, gosh, I don't know how explicit I could tell this story.
Have you heard our podcast?
He was so I heard the gospel when I was like really far gone, meaning I had just gotten arrested at age 11. I'd lost my virginity. I was sexually assaulted as a kid. Like, my life was, up until 13, my life was bad, like brutal bad. And thankfully I had a mom that pulled us out and moved us up here to Vista. I was in San Diego, and this is like this, you could tell it's kind of the country out here. It almost feels like, especially the area we're in, it's green. Long story short, God would put people in my life that were like sharing the gospel with me years before I ever followed Jesus. And initially in San Diego, it was like the manager of our apartment complex. And then out here, I would meet different friends, like my buddy that I told you guys about, right? His dad would share the gospel with me before I was really saved. And then I had this other buddy that lived literally 5 minutes from me. We would either walk to school together, or he was like a grade or two older than me. I think I was a freshman, he was a junior. And his mom would give me a ride every day. Just like the sweetest family. Super cool family. The mom loved Jesus. And he was a churchgoer. And so he like invites me to church. It's my freshman year. So it's before I ever start going to church regularly. And I'm like, cool, like, you're going to church? Like, I'll check it out, right?
Yeah.
And actually, it's a church not too far from it. I go to church, and it's one of those, what is it called? Sleep-ins? Sleepovers?
Lock-in.
Lock-ins. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
bro.
boy.
Those were a train wreck. I don't know who thought those were a good idea. So we do the lock-in, and this dude, how do I tell this story? This dude at the lock-in ends up walking up to me and going, "Smell my finger."
No.
And I'm like, what? He's like, smell my finger. And then he just puts it up like this. And I smell his finger. Yeah. And it reeked of...
I can already, yeah.
Yep, vagina. And I'm like... I'm not even saved. I'm like, here? Bro, here.
You knew that you couldn't be doing that.
I was like, come on, bro. Like, you can't do that here. And he's like, then he's, you know, then it just goes back to like American Pie, like that kind of energy. Like, you know, yeah, dude, you know, and I knew who the girl was. And I'm like,
that's
bro,
even worse.
Here. And so, yeah, man, he, I don't even know how to say it without, you know, yes, he ended up penetrating a girl at a lock-in with his fingers and then making me smell it. Well,
yo.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. I don't think he's walking with Jesus anymore.
Put a little bow in that.
I don't think he's walking with Jesus anymore. I still think about it. I haven't been in contact with him. A lot of my other friends that like shared the gospel with me, I'm still friendly with. I don't know what happened to him. He also too started selling drugs and yeah.
Dude, if there's one thing I've learned from this show, I mean I've learned a lot. It is that youth group lock-ins need to be eradicated.
Completely.
Gone.
Completely. Or you got to have a chaperone for every single human.
I don't even know if that would do it. I don't even know if that would do it.
Like a 35-year-old mom.
For every kid.
For every single kid. You are not leaving an adult's line of vision ever.
The listeners of the show know that podcasts are just not podcasts. Lock-ins are a no-no.
Terrible.
Big time.
I never understood the point of a lock-in. Like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this?
As a kid, a blast.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. I mean, listen, and this might be, people might just, I'm not a big fan of like sleepovers.
Nah.
Like,
I like my own bed.
Yeah. Like my son has a couple close friends, and even like close, I'm talking folks he's known since he was
as a parent, way different.
I'm just like, I don't know about this, man. How about we just go over there, and when everyone goes to bed, we just drive back to our house, which is 3 minutes away.
Yeah.
And you go to sleep in your own bed.
I think we think alike.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of it. Yeah. I just feel like it opens up the doors to just unnecessary stuff. Yeah, man. So yeah, there's a lot of things I think we do in youth group culture that, and also just from a very practical standpoint, like the development of a teenager or a middle school kids who is growing in their mind and they need their sleep and they need their food. Like, why keep them up all night?
That, and you get all the craziest hormonal adolescents in like that stage of life that are looking around. They're interested in girls now, and you lock them in a church until what? 6 a.m.
Yeah, it's terrible.
You can't watch every kid.
Terrible. I remember they tried to do a lock-in for. Okay, so we had this weird thing that was like, I don't know if you grew up, but we did a lot of like anti-drunk driving stuff. And it was like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Right? This was in the early 2000s. And so that was like really, that was, I think, a good thing they really, really pushed on us.
Yeah.
And so they did a drunk driving thing for the school, but it's kind of dark in hindsight. They're like, we're going to say that all of you died in a drunk driving accident, and we're going to hold an assembly. We're going to hold an assembly, and then like we'll announce that you guys died, and then like the next day, like they won't know where you're at, and you guys will all go stay the night at this hotel. Oh my goodness. And then
this was at your school?
This is at my high school, Vista High School, 2001 or 2002.
Wow.
And then the very next day, so it's like this like emotional, like we can't believe our favorite people from all, like they pick somebody kind of from every social group. Yeah, these people died in a drunk driving accident, and then people are gonna be sad. And I think folks knew that like it wasn't real, but it was still like the demonstration of it. And they had like, you know, pictures of everybody and this whole bit. And then the next day, so then you go and you stay the night at this hotel, and I'm like, this is weird, right? Like, so like, and the hotel was disorderly and unruly, and you didn't have your own bed, and there was like random people in random rooms, and so the next day they were supposed to go in, and then we were all gonna come out, and it was gonna be this reveal of like everything's okay. Yeah. Well, like I just went home. Like I went to the hotel and just went home. I was like, this is stupid.
So they really thought you died.
So I didn't show up to the assembly. And it was like, I'm not, this is stupid. Like, I'm not, whatever. And so then when I finally showed up, like there was a couple friends of mine that were like really concerned.
Yeah.
And then the nurse that put on this whole thing was like really mad at me. Like, I can't believe you didn't make it to the big reveal. And I was like, yeah, I just went home, went to bed, and I missed school the next day. This is ridiculous.
Dude, I thought that Christians were the only ones that did examples like that, because I've had stories sent in to the show where it was basically like persecution practice, essentially. So they would I know that sounds really bad, but basically they would I mean, this is multiple stories. They would scare the kids into thinking they were about to die if they renounced Christ, and then like say, if you say that you love Jesus, we're gonna kill you. And they bring in like fake guns and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this legit happened. And then like leaders would stand up and be like, no, I believe in Christ. And then they'd like handcuff him and drag him out of the building and lock him in like the meeting hall at the camps and stuff. So I thought Christians only did like the stuff where they pretend people die. Because there was like a pastor was basically preaching at camp, and then he said they gave an announcement to all the kids and said he died on the way here in a car wreck.
Oh my gosh.
And then he was in the rafters and he started talking on the mic or something like that, like crazy. And I thought Christians were the only ones that did that stuff. I'm glad to know it happened at your high school, because people gave a bad like.
So hold on. So they would do full on demonstrations and the kids weren't in on it, like a pastor's preaching or someone, and then like someone swarms the building
literally
with fake
like
guns.
Yeah,
and they're like,
yeah, you can't do that.
Denounce.
Wow, you do that at my church. Someone is legit dying because way too many people are strapped.
That's literally where my brain went. Like different parts of the country, you
can't do that.
You get shot for that, bro.
Yeah.
Wow. And so these poor kids would literally think that
they're about to die. They'd be like crying and the leaders would be like praying with them and stuff.
Oh my gosh. And they didn't know it was real.
No, and then they said like after what felt like 2 hours, they would say like, oh, this is just, we're just kidding. Like, this is just to show you what other people go through in other countries. And like, I get where you're coming from. I do.
Bro.
But I would never do that.
Bro, that's...
and I don't recommend ever doing that.
No, that's
crazy.
That's torture.
Yes.
But, I mean, in different parts of the world...
It does.
I could see some utility for it. Like if you're in Pakistan, or China, or North Korea, like I could see, like, no, we're gonna make you resilient and prepare. That's not funny, but
no,
I could see that being having some utility in places.
Or I think the biggest thing was in America trying to show them what other people go through.
Yeah, I think there's better ways to show them.
I do too.
Yeah. Wow. What is this? I do remember getting saved and there being a persecution complex, like this, like romanticism of persecution.
There's like some books on it.
What is that?
I don't know. I mean, there's a couple books out. I think Jesus Freak was one.
Yeah, I remember. I remember reading Jesus Freak.
It was all the martyrs, I think.
In my freshman year or somewhere in there, probably, and like telling my mom, like, Mom,
I want to be a martyr.
I'd die for Jesus.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? I don't want you to die. Like, no. And I'm like, but if it came down to it, I would. And she's just like, what are you talking about? Like, this is what, no.
That's a flashback, bro. I remember reading that when I was like 14.
Yeah, I was probably 15.
Yeah.
It was freshman, sophomore year. And I remember like being so gung-ho and telling her like, I would do it.
It was what? Just a bunch of stories?
Yeah.
Just from legit martyrs?
Apostles and martyrs and people throughout church history that have died. And I think a lot of them were verified. I don't know how verified
I would
were.
imagine quite a few.
Yeah. And so, but the fact that it's kind of dark if you think about it. Like that was a story in a book series that was sold by DC Talk.
The boys.
The boys. and the market was like high school youth group kids. Like, what are we?
Yeah.
What if
you really step back and think about it, you're right.
What are we doing? What do you think? Why do you think Christians in the West have this romanticism of like persecution? What do you think that is?
Maybe because we have it so easy. Maybe it's not the romanticism. It's we need to tell everyone that like we have it easy and it's harder. Almost like an education of what really is going on or what is going on in other places. That would be my best answer to it. Because otherwise, I mean, one, I think it is kind of dwindled a little bit. It was a lot of this and some of those stories for like early 2000s of like the persecution stuff, for like that people have sent in, or late 90s. So I think it has kind of changed, and I think it was more of a time period. But maybe I'm just kind of out of it and just haven't heard. And maybe it is the same. I don't know.
Because I hear what you're saying. I think there's hey, we have it really good. But do you think any of it is coming from a place of paranoia and like, oh, it's all about to? Because this is around the time Left Behind was super booming.
Oh yeah.
So people really thought that like the temple was going to get rebuilt in Israel and like we're all getting raptured.
We're gone.
And if you're not raptured, you know, like you're going to be facing the tribulation.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know where it comes from, but I think there are better ways to get people more fired up for God than like trying to scare them into it.
Yeah, I guess I think, well, what if we had more education and pathways on how to help people be shrewd and to be wise and to be like responsible, so that we could build young men and women that can help those who are in persecuted nations, you know, and be
make them business people, like
Yes.
help them become entrepreneurs, not like the cliche entrepreneur, but you know, like make some money, like be able to help and be involved in missions and stuff like that. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a much more sensible approach, because I do think we have it very good, and I think when you have it very good and you read the scriptures, you start inferring their context to our context, and we live in a totally like this is not Rome, you know, and because it's not Rome, we have a lot of freedom and a lot of leeway, and even if it becomes Rome, like what do you? We were never promised. You know, to have all this favor with the government, and all these liberties. So I've always found that interesting, because I think there is people that like love, and then there's people that are just like jerks for Jesus and then think they're being persecuted. Yeah, those people by far.
I think it's almost like you're raising awareness for something, but not creating a solution. And that happens a lot in culture. I mean, that could be a whole nother podcast of itself. But it's like you said, romanticizing the situation that may not happen, but there are people that are going through it. And then you could just equip people to be more of a help or a solution to the nations that are actually going through it. Yeah. I'm not saying this is not persecution here in the States, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's mild here in the States. My context of persecution was the guy that loved Jesus and walked around with a big Bible at my high school got teased. Yeah. Like that was, you know, like that was the depth of it. I guess now people can maybe lose economic opportunities, maybe lose some degree of status. I mean, I'm in places with certain friends who think that because I'm pro-life, I'm fringe. I'm fringe right. I'm fringe conservative. You know, because just simply because I take a pro-life position publicly. So there's some. I wouldn't call that like persecution. You know, I think that's very different.
Exactly, but I would say that is the extent of what it is here, which is pretty easy. You get some haters online.
Yeah. All right. You got some other stories for us? I like this.
This was sent in from Mike. Mike said, I had a crew of neighborhood kids that started coming to my youth group. They were a rough crowd, and because they were coming so regularly, they got to know the church really well. One day I got to church, and the groundskeeper was lecturing these kids during normal work hours like they were in trouble in some way. So after I inquired about what was going on, the gardener told me that he had found the kids on top of the youth building, like the closed off area with all the AC units and stuff up there. Things got weird when I noticed that next to the young guys were 4 large marijuana plants. Like in pots with potting soil, looking healthy, you know, the full 9 yards. Apparently, these students had been growing and harvesting these plants for months on top of our youth building. They had been coming to youth group each week with their buddies and sneaking off to water and prune their plants in a neutral location.
Wow. Wow. All right.
Yes. Little entrepreneurs is what we got.
It's very industrious of them. Wow.
He was all excited that they were like excited to become in a youth group, and they were excited.
It was a means to an end.
Yeah, they were excited.
It's like, this is where I could plant my weed. So, yeah, that's great. That's great. Zach always says, a little bit of Jesus is better than no Jesus.
That is true. Yep, that is true.
So at least they're coming.
At least they're coming. probably didn't know what was going on in the root. I'm curious to know how long that was going on for.
Yeah.
I mean, they were some pretty healthy plants, but it reminds me a little bit of the Bible app story. I mean, you saw that one. Like, really, you're gonna grow it at a church?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Did when you mentioned the Bible app story?
Yeah.
You know, go back here. Did anyone from the Bible app ever actually acknowledge that? No. Because someone else brought it up.
I saw a couple.
There's a couple of videos that brought it up. Yeah.
And then my friend, I mean, you've probably seen Isaiah. He's been on the podcast. Yeah. He made a joke about it. He's married, people.
For people who don't know what we're talking about, rehash that real quick.
Okay,
because
so
of the Bible app story, I think that's the one I reacted to.
This is a legendary story, youth group Chronicles story. And basically this youth pastor was approached by a parent that said, hey, my child's been spending a lot of time in the Bible app. Like they can track. You know how you look at the activity on a phone. Like, I think it was 8 hours a day or something, 6 to 8 hours.
It's a long time.
And the youth pastor was like, okay, like that should be good. And the mom explained that the attitude was still bad and like this kid was just getting in a lot of trouble. Come to find out, the kid was sending nude photos to his girlfriend via the Bible app, where you like go in and do like a scripture on a photo. Yep. So everyone, this is the kicker for me. Everyone had a little scripture inscribed in the corner.
Darkness.
That's dark. That's dark. That's really dark.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm shocked that they have not fixed that.
They did. That's what I was about to say. So my friend, who Isaiah's on the show all the time, and he's like, he made a joke about doing some research, and he texted me. He's like, "Hey, they took it down. Like you can't do that anymore."
Good.
Yeah, good. But the Bible app never said anything, never reached out, which I'm shocked because they had to have seen it.
They have to have seen it. Because I saw other people, I think, who saw your guys' video that then pointed.
Yeah, multiple people did like a tutorial, which I'm like, okay, now they're like, yeah, so this is how the kid was doing it. I'm like, why are you showing this?
Wow. Yeah, it just goes to show that, like, man, spiritually dead people will figure out ways
find a way
to do just debaucherous stuff. I remember a buddy of mine who had all the software on his phone to prevent him from looking at porn, and he would find out ways to open browsers within apps. So
he usually did through Instagram and even TikTok, I think.
Yeah, so he did not have Safari on his phone. The browser he could have was like Covenant Eyes or something.
Yeah.
But then he would still go into like an app and then click, like, you know how like you have like all your user terms of service. So that would open up a browser within the app, and then he would
not
punch
even like
in.
someone's handle. Like he had to go into Wow. That's
and then the terms of service would come up, and then you click on that and then rewrite the URL and then look at porn that way.
Wow.
I'm like, bro, you need help. That's a different degree of like you're literally like inventing new ways to do stuff. I mean, again, very industrious of you. Yeah. But like channel that into something else. You got to find other things to channel that in, because you're going to end up in a dark place.
Yeah. You're going places, not the right place. But.
Not the right places. But like like the ability to find loopholes inside
kids
of
do it,
things,
man. It's crazy.
That's nuts.
It's crazy what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and my thought just goes, can we redirect some of that energy into
they are problem solving.
They problem solve. That's that's very
smart
entrepreneurial.
Kids. Yeah, really. Like we make jokes about, like, there was a girl who was she put, I think it was weed in a tampon wrapper or something, and sold it at camp because she knew that they couldn't go confiscate tampons, right? Wow. So she was basically distributing weed at camp.
Hold on. Were they smoking it from the tampon?
That I don't know. That's a great question. They didn't really explain that.
Instead of rolling paper or blunt, you're smoking it out of the actual tampon.
So we do make funny comments of like, oh, we got a little entrepreneur on our hands.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like you said, channel that somewhere else. I don't have the solution for it. I really don't. But it's there.
Let me ask you,
it's not honed.
Do you, in your experience, right? Because again, a lot of what you're doing is curating, but in your experience, do you think this is coming from kids like you that grow up in homes with people who lead and love them well? Obviously, your parents probably weren't perfect, but youth group, Christian, love Jesus, the whole bit, homeschool. Do you think it's kids like you, or do you think it's kids with some bizarre environments where they're just kind of.
It's probably us.
But you think it's
no lie. Those are the
wow.
I am going to, as harsh as not harsh, but I will shelter my kids. Right, I'm going to keep them in a great environment. They're going to get out into the world, I'm sure, and experience some things. But I will do my best as a parent to give them a good, godly environment to
As
grow
you
up
should.
in. Okay.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people have said in the comments on these kind of posts, like, shelter kids just creates like sneaky kids, which I do tend to agree with to an extent, but I'm still going to raise and do what I can to raise my kids in a healthy, godly environment and protect them while they're children.
Sure. Do you think that's true though? Sheltered kids become sneaky kids?
Some do. Yeah, I was sneaky. I was definitely sneaky.
But you weren't selling weed out of tampons.
I was not selling. So those, I
Growing
think,
cannabis
that one,
on a church
those
youth group
ones,
building.
I would say are like the kids with the rough kids that would come to youth group. Maybe not the sheltered.
Yes.
Yeah, Bible app kid was probably a sheltered.
You think that was a shelter?
I would imagine.
Yeah, my son's not
he
getting
had
the Bible app.
Yeah, he had
whenever
the Bible
he gets
app.
a phone.
Like, what kid is not saved and comes to youth group and has a Bible app? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I would imagine, if I had to take a guess, that would be a more sheltered, or maybe raised in a Christian home. Maybe not sheltered, but raised in a Christian home.
Yeah.
Parents don't think the kid's doing anything.
Yeah. How do you? They didn't say the age.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'm probably teenager, I would bet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a whole conversation about like when should kids even get smartphones?
Yeah.
You know, like that's a good.
They're gonna find a way to do stuff.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So,
dude, my pastor wouldn't let his daughters, these are all girls. He wouldn't let his daughters get smartphones till they were 17, 18.
I mean, honestly, I have 2 little girls. I'm for it.
Yeah.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
And people probably think I'm crazy, but
the psychology from the last time I looked into it, that what they're pushing is wait till 8th. So they say wait until 8th grade.
Yeah,
that's the soonest, like the world,
and that's
is
the world standard.
That's the world standard.
Yeah. So what we have to double? No,
double that.
Double that is what? Is that college? Graduating college?
Yeah. My son's 8, and he's asking me for an Apple Watch with his own phone number. He wants to be able to call from an Apple Watch. And I'm like, you're not getting that till at least 10.
Yeah.
If you get it at all. You know, he's like, can I get it for my 9th birthday? No. You're not getting that for your 9th birthday. And I'm like, well, you know, if he's at his friend's house or whatever, like the ability to call from his watch, and because they have the cellular ones with the number. Like,
dude, I thought I was balling when I had a flip phone.
Yeah, so did
I didn't. I mean, iPhone came out when I was probably 12 maybe. I'm like trying to do the math here. And like that was cool. So I had an iPod Nano. I thought I was like really cool. And then the flip phone to call mom and dad like after baseball practice or something. And then I don't think I had like I had an iPod which they would check and stuff. But I had an iPhone when I was 16 maybe. Yeah. So I mean,
I would have to know, even when my kids get one, I'd have to know how to completely lock it down.
Yeah.
And know which
how
apps.
to get in.
Yeah.
But even that, there's people like they were commenting on the Bible app thing. Sorry, I just looked at the screen. I saw Isaiah. Sam didn't know what a tampon was until 5 years ago. Isaiah, my guy. Isaiah is one of our co-hosts on the show.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anyway, where was I going? I don't remember what I was saying.
You talking about getting an iPhone?
Yes.
So you're talking about how I said having the iPhone locked down, and you were talking about
the Bible so people were commenting. They're like, they have different apps now. They have the calculator app. I'm sure there's like ways that you can go research, but it's disguised. It's a calculator app, but you can go in.
My gosh.
I don't know if it's like it holds photos or what it does, but they're always coming up with new stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like really trying to be intentional to stay on top of like the trends.
And how old are your kids now?
I have a 2.5-year-old and then like an 8-month-old.
Got you.
Yeah, so they're young.
On the
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I just read that the new iOS update is going to instantly blur out any nudity.
Oh, really?
Like the AI of the new iOS is going to blur out any nudity, and you can turn that off if you want to.
Oh, got it.
Or you can turn it on if you want to. I don't know.
You could probably lock it as a parent though, right?
Yeah. So I think Apple was taking notice that this stuff is becoming more and more available to kids.
That's crazy to think about, though.
You know, and that they're attempting to navigate some of this stuff. I think that's good. You know, let's do another one. You got another one?
Yeah, I do. I have a few here.
Okay. These are great.
Yeah, this is from Ben. Ben said, during dinner at youth camp, a student of ours who was 14 years old decided to propose to his girl. Now,
14 years old decided to propose?
14.
Come on.
He had a very real diamond ring and then started making out with her in the middle of the cafeteria in front of the whole youth camp. Except his now fiancée was his cousin.
Whoa!
Darkness.
Wow. What did they say where that was from?
I could take a guess.
Take a guess. What state is that from? Oh man. That's dark.
Yeah.
That's dark. Someone said definitely happened in PA.
No. No. Maybe Alabama or Kentucky would be my guess.
Wow. Oh man. Yeah, that's.
So what I was wondering is, when did they find out it was the cousin? Like, is this something a week later they're like, hey, by the way, like those two kids are cousins, or like they ran over and like, stop, because they knew right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a degree of debauchery I know nothing about.
Yeah, not.
But I hear it happens. Especially like second and third cousins. I hear that stuff happens.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I could see someone like not knowing someone, and then not saying first cousins, but like third or fourth, and then like being, oh shoot, I was dating someone. I think I've heard that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, have you heard of the attraction post adoption thing?
No. So does that mean it's the parent to the kid that's not theirs?
Yeah, dude.
No, but I could.
That's dark.
Yeah.
You could verify this. If you put up a kid for adoption, they can.
Oh, other way around.
Yeah, so you can potentially bump into them, not knowing that was your kid 20 years ago, right? So you're 16, you put up a baby for adoption. Now you're 36, they're whatever, 8, whatever the numbers are, 20. And then you bump into each other, and then there's like a huge magnetic bond you share with a person. And folks
and you don't realize.
Folks have full on fell in love. Then I think figured it out. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I've seen a couple.
They didn't
Instagram
realize
videos.
it was a different magnetic. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Flesh.
That's
Wow.
dark. And then I saw of a dude who, I want to say this is in Europe, who was a huge sperm donor, and he was just slanging it, dude. He was just tons of, because I guess he met like the whatever genetic qualifications there were of wanting to the type of DNA he had. I don't know what, he was taller.
He was sought after.
Yeah, sought after. But you could only donate sperm to a certain degree, but his thing was like going from clinic to clinic to clinic to clinic.
So he was all over the place.
And so he was trying to flood his region with as many offspring as possible. And they charged him for it. I think he got in trouble.
Oh, because
legally.
imagine you don't know your parent, and you
Bump
meet
into
someone,
somebody that's
you
your
have
brother.
no idea, in the least weird way possible.
Yes.
Yikes.
That's dark, dude.
Yeah.
So he in his mind, he was helping people because his DNA was sought after. But then socially, they're like, this is going to end really terribly for all these kids that grow up.
Yeah.
And they start bumping in and dating. Because again, that
you
I
would
think
have
there's
to
also
start doing like DNA tests every time, right?
Yep. And there's also a magnetic bond that happens there.
Yeah.
You know, where if you, I think, are genetically the same, like people kind of gravitate.
I didn't know that. That's actually crazy, though.
Yeah. It's nuts, dude. That's crazy. Yeah. Ugh. All right. Yeah, it was the doctor of the clinic. Thank you, Sierra. Just summarized it. Yeah, Penguin.
Oh,
Penguin
yeah.
did a
Sierra's
video
my wife,
on it.
by the way.
Hey, Sierra. Thanks for letting Sam come hang out with us.
Yeah.
All right. You got another one for me?
Yes.
How many more you got?
Let's see.
I don't want to keep asking for them. And then
3. I have 3.
Okay, 3 more.
This is from Haley. Haley said, in my senior year, my friend and I were placed with 2 of the younger girls to dorm with while we were on a youth group retreat. The time came to go to our dorms for the night, and naturally, we were too excited and energized to sleep. So rather than goof off, we decided to do the responsible Christian thing and read through an entire book of the Bible together with the girls.
Respect.
It was my job to pick the book of the Bible to read through, and I knew I would need a short one. Despite growing up in church my whole life, I had not yet read the Bible cover to cover at that point.
Okay.
So I flipped through the Bible to find a short book to read. Of all the books I chose to read, I happened to read and choose Song of Solomon.
Hold on. Did she happen to say which translation?
No.
Because the Song of Solomon in the KJV, I'm not too concerned about. Song of Solomon in the NLT?
They let you know.
Bro, that joint's explicit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
She said, however, I was so oblivious to what I was reading aloud that I didn't connect the dots until chapter 7. Specifically verse 8, which reads, I will go to the top of the palm tree and take hold of its branches. Oh, may your breasts be like the fruit of the vine and the sweet smell of your breath like pleasing fruit. Before I realized it, I had nearly read through the entire book of Song of Solomon to a 12-year-old.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, that's dark. That's dark. But you know, I think that's a fire book. I think that's a great book, you know, especially if you're married.
Yeah. If you're married, it's a great book.
Yeah. If you're not married, you shouldn't be reading it to 12-year-olds. I think I'm not 100% certain on this, but I believe Jewish boys couldn't read that book until they were 13.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think you have to be 13 to read.
That would make
Song of
sense, yeah.
Solomon, you know, which when you talk about like purity culture and you talk about you know, how much Puritan values influence Christians, it's very ironic considering that Song of Solomon is very explicit.
Yeah, very
explicit. I think she's dancing nude for him.
There's quite a bit.
There's a lot of stuff in there, which is like, I think it's a great story about pleasure and God's design for enjoying relationship and pleasure, but not for little kids.
So your comment about the translation, I'm curious because she made it to what, chapter 7 before realizing. So would that mean that KJV maybe it was a little harder for her to realize and connect the dots?
Yeah, that sounded like the New King James.
This one, you think this was New?
Yeah, New King James.
I don't know. Go to the top of the palm tree and take hold of its branches,
or maybe not.
I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll have to do some research.
Yeah, we gotta do some research on that. Yeah, what do you make of folks who will say Song of Solomon is really about Jesus and the church?
I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what to think of it, to be honest.
Because there's some freaky stuff going on between Jesus and the church that I don't think I want any parts of.
Yeah, I'm good on that. I actually haven't heard that though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my church went through a ton of phases. And initially it was a phase, you know, we were kind of like a edgy, cool church and kind of more of like a seeker church. And then when we were a seeker church, and not really a seeker church, we've just evolved a lot, charismatic a little bit. And so one time we went through, it could have been a huger contrast. One time we go through Song of Solomon, and it's positioned as as this is about Jesus in the church. Literally 3-4 years later, we become the Calvinist church. We become the super duper Calvinistic church. And then we go through it a second time. And the second time we go through it, we're like, no, this is about marriage and intimacy. Couldn't have been a polar opposite interpretation of it. And that's one thing that I do appreciate about some Calvinists is that they do have I think a better theology around pleasure. You know what I mean? And probably post Mark Driscoll, they had a better, because I think he did a series called Princess and Bride in the mid-2000s, and we literally just taught it a second time, and it was like all about.
I heard. So we went to a church in Florida one time, and they did a series on it, and we were there for like vacation or something. It was just a week, and I think it was Between the Sheets. I think is what they called it, and I'm pretty sure it was on Song of Solomon.
Yep.
So yeah, that's. I don't think, have we ever done really anything? I've heard it. You've heard it? Yeah. Okay. I haven't bumped into it.
What do you make of purity culture in general? Right, like you grew up Christian. Did you grow up with a healthy understanding of biology? Did you grow up with a healthy understanding of pleasure, of how all these things worked? Me and my son, we started having these conversations early about the biology, and mom has the seed, mom has the seed, dad has the sperm. This is how it works. Seed goes in them, right? Like, so we've gotten there, and now he's starting to ask, like, well, how does the sperm get into the seed? And so we're about to have like the pleasure conversation. So he's 8. So we've been having these conversations for a while. From your perspective, obviously, if people don't have a great understanding of the biology or the pleasure aspect, I think at a reasonable age, then they can grow up with a very distorted, confusing version of sex.
So for me, Sierra and I, We're each other's first. We got married. First, not her first boyfriend, but my first girlfriend. So thankfully, you know, we saved each other, saved ourselves for each other, which is really cool, I think.
Awesome.
When it comes to the purity culture, I think there does need to be like those talks, just to know, like, I don't think you need explicit detail.
Yeah.
But you do need to know like what's going to happen, what's going on. And I also think you shouldn't completely shield. I think that's the biggest thing that people get into when it comes to the purity culture is, I don't know, the Duggars come to mind. Just like completely like turn the other way. Like you can't know anything about the opposite gender. And I think that's more damaging than anything. And I think that's where a lot of the purity culture gets a bad rap is the, oh my goodness, like, that girl was wearing a bikini, like I'm gonna go to hell.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think we will then take the woman's body and demonize it as a whole, which I think is unhelpful because it's not the woman's body that's evil. It's what men do in perverting the woman's body and making it into an object that's evil. Yeah. And so I think that's like the over correction.
They like basically take it out on the woman instead of trying to connect or correct the culture with the man.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. I'm trying to find this DM for you of someone that reached out to me basically saying they don't know how anything works and they're trying to they asked for my input on what to do on their wedding night. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah, they DM me. I'm trying to find it. Bro, it's nuts.
While you're trying to find it, our young adult pastor is a great friend of ours. Basically, before Sierra and I were married, he's like, dude, just so you know, I know both. I mean, obviously, he knew that Sierra and I had saved each other ourselves. And he's like, I'm just going to like give you the talk as someone who's been married within the past 4 years. And I will say I was very thankful for that. It was like, it wasn't weird. He's just like, hey, this is what you need to know. Yeah. This is what's going to happen.
Yep.
And then we had premarital with our pastor. And obviously, they go through all that kind of stuff. But you just don't make it weird.
Yep.
And it should be talked about.
Yeah. So you can help me do this topic. This is great. Hey, Ruslan, I love your content and the directions it's heading towards. Being you're one of the few Christian creators that cover things of Christianity that aren't spoken of, I wanted to reach out and see if you had any suggestions on how to learn about autonomy and sex ed.
How they're getting married soon, you said?
Learn about autonomy?
I'm preparing to marry my fiance in a month, and both of us are virgins, and our parents taught us nothing about our bodies.
Oh, no.
Should I be laughing at this? Yo, parents, you failed. You have failed your kids if they don't know about autonomy and the basics of this stuff.
Not even the basics. That's the crazy part.
I'm preparing to marry my fiance in a month, and both of us are virgins, and our parents taught us nothing about our bodies. So I would like to learn more about myself, but just straight up Googling stuff can cause
don't do that. Don't do that.
Of people's junk and stuff to pop up. And I just don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, first step, don't do that.
Zach's over there like
is Zach married? Zach's married. There you go.
Yo.
Go to Amazon. Go buy a book.
Zach thinks you should go to Amazon and buy a book.
Okay.
Go read a book.
Or this is what I would do. I would go to someone you trust. Is he like a Christian from a church? Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm assuming. They're going to me with this.
Okay.
What do I tell them?
I would go to a young adult pastor or a leader in your church that you're close with and make it not weird and be like, bro, this is where I'm at. Can you give me an overview here? It has to be married. The person has to be married. Okay. And it has to be the same gender that you're talking to. Just throwing it out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's where I would go. I wouldn't go to mom and dad.
Don't go to mom and dad.
Can you imagine?
Here's the advice that I've given to men that are about to marry virgins. It's probably going to hurt. Consider getting some lube. And just be prepared that it may not feel good to her for a while. A lot of foreplay. Take your time.
Good advice.
Don't try to rush in. And it sounds like neither of them have looked at porn, which is a massive W. So shout out to them that they haven't looked at. What? Why are you laughing? Clearly, yeah. So that's a huge feat in and of itself. So props to them. L for the parents for not preparing them for this. But those are like I've had this conversation multiple times with multiple dudes that they didn't know, you know, and some of the guys had been promiscuous before and they had married virgins. They just didn't know. Yeah. And, you know, we've gotten the calls from, my wife has gotten the calls on the wedding night of like, we can't fit it in. What do we do? You know? And I'm just like, not gonna lie. We had to text this friend couple of ours and ask one question. You did? Yeah. About? Yeah. Like, I mean, we knew. Yeah. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. But we were just like, hey, by the way, like, should this? Yeah. And they haven't let us live it down. But that's just that is the homeschooler, I guess, coming out. Yeah. So I've had this conversation multiple times. I've equipped people in the sense of like a lot of foreplay, a lot of warming up, a lot of other stuff, because there is a natural lubrication to things. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. And so, yeah. Not you. Well, yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's, yeah, I can't believe I got that DM. Someone commented, what? The Christian books. Is there something out there that's like, that knows that people are in this position? I've made a couple of videos on this. I wonder if there are books. Okay, so you made, okay. Yeah. But how not like a clean how to? I feel like you should know which parts go into which parts. I feel like, I mean, I would feel like that aspect is pretty self-explanatory. That's a dangerous road. To assume that people know which parts go into which parts? No, to have to figure it out on your own. To figure that out on your own. Yeah. But yeah, don't Google it. Maybe this is the children's book we write. You've been wanting to write a book, right? No. A good Christian book. That's what I mean. For boys that are about to go into puberty, to walk them through the mechanics and the anatomy of what's going to happen, and to give a proper context of what is going to happen when they finally choose to enter a covenant marriage. There you go. I think it's good. That's what I was saying. I'm not saying about children's. I'm talking like a book like this for my son from a solid Christian author right now would be very helpful. You know what I mean? Because my wife got a couple books, and you know, I don't know if I really rock with the books that she got. You know? She got books. Yeah. Huh? I'll show them to you later. Yeah. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying I don't know. Yeah. They just seem very 1970s ish. You know? We need a modern version, a sick comic book.
You don't need illustrations.
Yeah. No, the books have illustrations. Oh, okay. Yeah, they have illustrations. Yeah, I'll show them to you. They're fascinating. All right. Let's move on. That was a great purity talk, right? That was a good purity talk. A couple more here. All right. This is from Tabitha. She said, my craziest youth ministry story was when we were in the middle of watching a movie with the students, and the youth pastor got a call from a parent. The parent was yelling, asking where her daughter was. The youth pastor turns on the lights and asks where this girl is, and the students in the room said that she had snuck out at the beginning of the movie with one of her friends. So here's what happened. She's 12 years old, and she convinced a senior citizen to let her test drive their car. What? She and her friend had obviously never driven a car before, and wrecked it, and they were currently in the ER. Oh my gosh. My gosh. What possesses a child? This is a child. This is not a teenager. A girl, yeah, that's not wild, a crazy dude. This is a girl. Wow. 12-year-old girl. A 12-year-old girl. First of all, who is this senior citizen? That's a great question. And did she like look like a teenager? Like, was she? Here's my keys. Like, maybe she looked older, and the senior citizen was that's like, fair. Or maybe they just weren't all there. Yeah. Or they weren't all there. Yeah. Probably the latter. Yeah. And let her drive the car. Oh man! And then they crashed. it. I wonder if it was a nice car. What if it was like a Benz? Yo. Hey, senior citizens got nice whips, They do, actually. They be having nice whips. Do. A lot of folks work their whole life, and then they retire, and they could tap into their 401k. They go buy the brand new car they've always wanted. How terrible would that be? Not good. Wow. This is like the dream car. You know they paid cash for it because they've been like saving up their entire life to finally get something nice. Mm-hmm. Got swindled by a 12-year-old. Does the insurance even cover that? I don't know. Wait, what is it? We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Yeah, that would be very fitting. Oh man, That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Ouch. Yeah. Do you do follow-ups with any of these folks?
Sometimes. So
like, do you ever reply? Like, I would reply and be like, "So what happened to the kids?"
What happened?
Like, I would have so many more questions
Honestly,
and answers.
I have so many stories that we have to go through that that would be a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
Just following up with people.
But I mean, like, you get a story. Do you ever reply and like ask additional questions?
I haven't. Maybe a couple times when I need some clarification on something.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, no, not really. So I just leave it hanging. What I like to do is fill in my own context blanks and be like, worst case scenario, or just like totally come up with my own story and then just kind of fill in the blanks that way.
Yeah. One of our moderators said Ruslan would be messaging in the back with a list of 20 questions. I so would. I'd be like, wait, how, when, why, who, what did it cost? Did they ever get their driver's license? You know, how bad were the injuries? You know, the ER. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Wow. What I want to know is the youth leader didn't even know she was missing. That's the funny part. In the middle of the movie, you just like flip the lights on and 2 kids are gone.
That's a bad.
You got to
youth
do
leader.
better.
You're fired. You're done, bro. You're done. And potentially liable of a crime.
You think they'd be well, yeah, because you're watching the minor?
Right? Yeah, I would think so.
Dang.
I would think so.
This is why so people always ask, I mean, you asked, are you in youth leadership still? Yeah. No. Am I going back? No.
Yeah.
You guys are underpaid. A lot of people volunteer, so not paid at all. So you guys get extra crowns because it is wild, some of the things these kids put you through.
When do you think kids should leave youth ministry and go into big church?
I
checked out freshman year. Like, I went to youth group for a couple months, and then I was like, I'm going to big church.
I think that all depends on the youth pastor.
Okay.
And this, like, one thing I've noticed is that youth groups unfortunately make it all about the games as the attraction instead of like the Holy Spirit and God. And I think if that is the case and it's like, oh, this is a fun environment, then yeah, throw them into church because they're going to actually get some meat. But if you are preaching the word and these kids are getting saved and, you know, actually getting discipled, then I would say 18 when they graduate high school. I have not seen a problem in our church at that age. The biggest problem that they actually ran into was when they invited the what was it, 5th grade, 6th grade? When did they combine? It was like the younger kids and the older kids, and that's when the older kids really checked out. But once they kept it from like it was 7th or maybe 9th grade to 12th, then it felt like they were way more checked in.
Even 9th graders and 12th graders in the same youth group.
That is a big jump, jump for sure.
I just think of like how beneficial it would be to have multi-generational church and leadership, right? So that like if hypothetically you had the high school kids getting poured into by the guys in their 20s or 30s, and then those kids were pouring into the middle school kids, and then there was just transgenerational discipleship thing happening instead of like compartmentalizing the kids go in this room and go in that room, right? Like obviously, like I serve in the 3 and under room, so obviously like you can't just have 3-year-olds in the main service, right? So there's some, but I think like if you're freshman year high school.
So I guess I misunderstood your question. For our church, our youth group meets on like Thursday night.
Okay, so but Sundays they're with the big
Sunday
church.
They're in the big church.
Okay,
yeah. And actually, they just started doing this really cool thing. Even the kids. So I would say probably this is in youth group, but 6-year-olds aren't in the service, but they actually rope off a part of our auditorium, and the leaders and security come out with the kids for worship, and then they bring them back for their class. So I thought that was actually a pretty cool idea because you're actually getting them in with the actual culture. But every youth group kid is in the service.
That's
awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
like
that. So now I understand the question.
Got you. Okay, you got one last one?
Yep. Let's roll.
I love these.
John said, my craziest youth ministry story was when I was pulled over for kidnapping in Chicago.
What?
Both me and the teens were searched, interrogated, and then finally turned loose once everything was on par and the stories checked out. But what I didn't know is at the time, there were 2 of my senior girls in the back seat of the van posting signs that said they were being kidnapped.
Oh my gosh.
And people in the cars called the cops on us.
Oh my gosh. They probably thought it was a cute little joke.
The kids did.
The girls who were pulling the signs up.
Not the.
Oh my gosh.
The good citizens of Chicago.
Wow. Shout out to the good citizens of Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, they made the right call.
Yeah, they did.
You know, I wonder what the police thought when they were pulling up.
I mean, they probably had to like really take it seriously. They said they got interrogated, searched. There's been actually a couple stories that have been sent in, very similar. There's been, I think that's the third one. And one guy got pulled out at gunpoint, like surrounded by surveillance, or not surveillance, SUVs, black SUVs, pulled out at gunpoint. You don't know what's going on because you would have said stop for one. Yeah. But yeah, I would have crapped my pants.
Wow, man. Gosh. What an interesting world all of this is in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's such an interesting, fascinating thing to, like, do you think youth groups existed like 200 years ago?
I don't know. Probably not.
Right?
Oh, well. Like, I don't know. I bet they would have youth activities where, we're going to take the kids out.
Yeah. It would be fun to go down that rabbit hole of like, when did the modern day youth group come to?
A lot of people hate in the comments are like, youth group doesn't belong in church.
Youth group doesn't belong in church?
That's what they say. They're just like, this is stupid. Like, there should be no such thing as youth pastors and youth groups. And like, I think going back to, if we're gonna, this is gonna sound weird, but like church as marketing, it's top of funnel for a kid that's never been to church. Okay, that's how I look at it.
Game nights, all the fun stuff.
Yeah, not that it's all about games, but like you bring them and like they're around their peers, instead of trying to bring them to a church service. So it might be the first thing they experience, and then they get the gospel with people that are their own age, and they're way more apt to bring people if they're new to church or if they're not even saved. Like, they're going to bring a friend to youth group to hear the gospel. I would think. I mean, yeah, I could be totally wrong. Instead of a Sunday morning service.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. What do you think the biggest misconception about youth groups are?
The biggest misconception, man, I don't know. Maybe that they're not really doing anything. I think some youth groups certainly aren't. But I think it's an avenue for discipleship more than anything. Because if it is, like, if you were to, you asked where the origin of youth group comes from, I would imagine that it started when they decided that they needed discipleship for that age group instead of your discipleship through, the Sunday morning service and then the adults. Like, they realize, hey, this is what needs to happen. And I think the biggest misconception is youth group is all about the games and all about the fun. But I know some youth groups that are out there preaching, ours for example, out there preaching the word, minimal games, and they still have 150 kids show up on a Thursday night. And it's not about the games. Like, that's not what attracts the kids necessarily.
It's the community aspect of it. Yeah. No, that's good. What is your macro vision for what you're doing in terms of the pod?
Macro vision would be one, a top 10 audio podcast, a big YouTube channel, and then really just to go do the events would be the coolest thing. Just a content engine that shows people that they're not alone in youth ministry. And initially this came out to be like a really funny podcast where that was the only goal. But some people have been like, this is kind of a ministry, right? Showing people that like they're not alone. One guy messaging, he's like, hey, if you never use these stories, it's all right. But this is like therapy for me. Not that I am a therapist by any means. But it's kind of funny, like to give people in youth ministry an avenue that, one, maybe people in their church wouldn't find the things that happen funny. But other people in youth ministry, they do. And it's an opportunity for them just to get it off their chest, be like, you're not going to believe what happened. And have other people in that niche, kind of react to it. So macro is just a content engine that helps youth pastors.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And are you guys doing any events yet? Do you have anything on the horizon?
We don't have anything on the horizon yet. If you are interested, you can go to ygcpodcast.com and find information there and reach out to us. But yeah, that's all in the works.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to do a quick outro.
Got it.
Because we are not going to keep that part public. the whole sex part.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, no, not that part. That part was funny. I think that should be its own video. The finger thing should be its own video.
I missed it. Oh, that.
Yeah. Guys, make sure you check out Youth Group Chronicles and Sam and everything they got going. And if you want to see the extended version of this conversation that was too spicy for YouTube, we get into the message I got about the autonomy of intercourse and what advice people have and how can we better equip Christians to enjoy intimacy when they're married. It's a little explicit. Sign up for our Patreon community. You can check out the full unedited podcast there. It gets a little raw. I have to take that out. All right. I'll see you guys over there. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you. Peace.